What's going on, guys? In today's video, I'm going over the differences between the red pill and the blue pill and my thoughts on these two pills. Before we get started, my name's Keith. I made this channel to help men create their ideal lives through self-mastery. Be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any new videos because I put out new videos every single day. So let's get into this. I got asked to do a video on what I thought of the blue pill and the red pill and also what I thought of game in general. And so I want to go ahead and do that now. I'll start by explaining what the blue pill and the red pill are for anyone who doesn't know. When it comes to relationships, the blue pill is kind of like the Hollywood narrative. It's like the Prince Charming, white knight kind of guy. It's the whole thing where guys just act really nice to girls to try and get their approval. It's a real beta male kind of attitude. These guys end up being like plow horses in relationships. They're kind of useful idiots. A lot of times society portrays beta males on TV a lot of times, and a lot of guys grow up in not great relationships with their father, or maybe their father's not present, and so they end up adopting a lot of these habits as a result. Things like supplicating, not having self-direction, just doing whatever the woman tells them to do. And this usually, in fact, it almost always backfires. It's a bad situation, so I'm not a fan of the blue pill. When it comes to the red pill, I think the red pill is true in some regards. So what I mean by this is I think it's kind of true the way you could watch a movie, and a really good movie happens at multiple layers, okay? So let's say you go watch Batman, The Dark Knight Rises. That's my favorite movie, so I'll use it as an example. So you could watch it and you could literally interpret what's going on in the movie. You could say there's this guy flying around in a cape, and then there's Bane, the bad guy. Or you could look at it from a symbolic perspective and realize it's trying to tell a more deep story and an archetypal story. And depending on where you're at in your life is the level of analysis you're going to take this movie at. Like there's a scene where Batman's in a prison, which is in a cave or in a tunnel, or not a tunnel, a pit. And symbolically speaking, this whole experience is about him having to rise up out of this pit, and in doing so, he has to go down. It's a symbolic story of how a man has to journey to the pits of hell to completely figure himself out and then rise out, and then he comes out of the cave and he's integrated. You'll notice before in the movie, Bane can kick his ass, and after he gets out of the cave, he's integrated that part of himself back into himself that he has to rediscover as he escapes the pit, and suddenly he's a lot more formidable, and it's this symbolic story. So depending on where you're at in your life determines the way you'll see a movie, and all of the levels of analysis are true. It's just which one is more kind of useful, which one's like a different kind of truth. And so the red pill to me is biologically true is what I mean, but it is not completely true. And this is where I'm going to get a lot of butthurt red pill guys getting mad at me, because there's some guys who, with this red pill, they're kind of like the Antifa of the men's issues world, and they just get mad at anything you say that's not exactly what they want, so whatever. There's one person I would recommend, because I don't do a ton of relationship advice videos. If you want more like consistent content like this, I would recommend you check out a guy named Casey Zander. He's the only other YouTuber I've ever seen who seems to be able to understand how to talk about men in relationships without having to denigrate women, but he can also give you the truth, and I like his perspective on things. I would recommend you check out his channel if you want some more advice on this kind of stuff. So like I said, I think the red pill is biologically true, and I think the reason that this is because the person who's kind of the godfather of the red pill movement was, I believe, an evolutionary psychologist. So he looked at human beings through a biological lens. He saw human beings as animals with this higher intelligence, and he basically would say that our higher intelligence is rationalizing our animalistic drives, basically. So he looks at everything like that. So through that lens, all of the stuff he says makes perfect sense, but the problem is we're not completely biological. We also have a spiritual side, and the degree to which the red pill is true is in direct relation to how much spiritual truth a person has, how spiritually involved the person is, how self-aware they are. The less self-aware you are, the more likely the red pill stuff is going to work. Like if you go up to some girl who's completely lacking in self-awareness and you run a bunch of pickup artist game on her, it's going to completely work, right? Because she's just kind of clueless running through life. And a lot of guys are the same way. They're completely controlled by their animalistic drives. But the more you get out of your ego and start living like a more higher, well-developed human being, the less this stuff is true. And that's why I think the older you are, the more likely you are to be capable of having a mature relationship, because you've just been through more of life and you understand these kinds of things. So some things that I like about the red pill. I think it does a very good job of telling men that they need to be self-directed. They need to act like men, because men don't really understand how to act like men anymore. I think when it talks about a woman optimizing her hypergamy, I think that's true as well. Women, it's just a fact. Like, I don't see why this is something to upset people, but women are going to look for the best man they can find, and men are going to look for the best woman they're going to find, and that's just how it is. I think that the red pill kind of stuff is almost like the first step. So like the first thing you're going to see about a person is their biological appearance, right? So a man's looking for the most attractive woman, a woman's looking for the man who has the specific qualities that she's looking for. And you're going to see that biologically first, then you're going to learn more about the person. And the thing is, like I said, you could live your whole life through a red pill lens and you'd be fine. But I just think it would be kind of an empty, unfulfilling life, because you're lacking the depth of a spiritual aspect to your life when you live through this lens. So I think that it's really good to know the red pill stuff. It's just not where the story ends, basically. One thing that I really split with the red pill people on is this idea that human beings are naturally polygamous. The red pill community suggests that basically marriage is a social construct, and I disagree with this, because the statistics are overwhelming that children raised in two-parent households are way better off than children raised in single-parent households on just every area, basically. I think this is actually the biggest problem in our society today, is the single-parent household. And the destruction of the nuclear family by the government. But I mean, that's another topic for another video. But with those facts in hand, even from a biological perspective, you would have to look at it and think that clearly human beings were adapted to have both parents around in their lives. And if a man's just out spreading his seed everywhere he goes and running off, that doesn't happen. So I reject this idea. I think human beings are in the rare circumstance in the animal kingdom where we're capable of pretty much whatever we want. We can act polygamous, we can act monogamous. But I think every man, if he was willing to get off his I'm an alpha male hardcore stance, trying to act like he has no feelings, he would admit that he deep down would like to have a serious committed relationship with someone. And every woman feels the same way if they look deep down. But we're all caught up in this ego tripping bullshit, like what I talked about in that video on celebrity culture that I made. I'll link to that right here, because there's some good information similar to this in that video. So basically at this point you might want to know kind of like, so what do I think the best solution is? And I think the best solution is that you look at your relationship beliefs like a tool, and the tool should be designed to get you to the specific point you want to be. All your beliefs are basically tools. They're designed to work in the world so that you can get a specific result. So the blue pill is kind of like trying to cut down a tree with a butter knife. It's completely useless. You're not going to get it done. Red pill's like an axe, okay? And if you've been using a butter knife your whole life, an axe seems like it's just perfect. Like, you couldn't ask for anything better than an axe, right? But I think you could also take a chainsaw to the situation, and that means you can have it all. You can have the biological relationship that works. You can understand the biological dynamics to a relationship, but you can also have a genuine relationship built on something deeper than lust and all these different things. And it could be built on character and morals and values and things like that. And then I think you get the whole thing put together at one time. Now, the reason that this doesn't happen a lot, and the reason that it seems like this is not true, what I'm saying a lot of times, is because most people just simply haven't done the work on themselves, or they don't have the spiritual side, especially in our world, to be capable of maintaining a relationship like this. They're just not self-aware enough, and that's just the matter of the fact. It's not just women, it's men as well. I take a ballpark guess that about 90% of people are currently, at least in our age range, are incapable of having a legitimate relationship at this point. They're completely screwed up, and partly it's not really their fault. The world has kind of screwed this whole situation up, and it requires us to be self-aware enough to go figure all this out for ourselves, and that's not an easy thing to do. But the thing is, just because most people aren't going to be able to do this correctly doesn't mean it's not worth it to do it, because the majority do a lot of dumb stuff, and like the majority of people aren't going to be millionaires, but it doesn't mean you don't want to be a millionaire. So just because it's unlikely and it's difficult and most people aren't cut out to be in good relationships doesn't mean you still shouldn't pursue that which you'd rather have. So basically what I'm saying you should have to do here is you got to get good with yourself, and then you're going to have to accept the fact that you're going to have to weed through a lot of crap to get to the kind of woman that you want for a relationship, and that's just how it's going to be. But that kind of woman you're looking for is having to weed through a lot of crap on the other side as well. So it's kind of like, it's just how it is, really, and there's no way around that. But I mean, the same way it's hard to build a great business, it's hard to build a great body, well, it's hard to build a great relationship. But the things that require effort in life are the things that are meaningful. And just because it seems hard is not a good reason to not pursue what you'd rather have in your life and what would make you the happiest. So the last thing I'll say on all this, basically my point that I want to make here is that when it comes to the red pill is true on one level of analysis, but it is not all encompassing. The same way that science is true in its domain, but science doesn't answer a lot of questions that are important, and this is why science and religion butt heads a lot. Science can't tell you how to live your life. Science looks at things as objective facts. It doesn't believe in subjective truth, and therefore science can't tell you the meaning of life. And if you don't have a meaning to your life's gonna suck, right? So science is not a complete thing. It's a tool that's useful for certain things. The same way the red pill is a tool that's useful for certain things, but it's not the complete solution to the problem, and you still need to have morals and ethics, and you need to look for something deeper than just believing that you're simply some animal that's running around trying to reproduce, because deep down you know that's not true. You know there's more to you than that. Now, as for game, I wanted to cover this because the guy who asked me the question also asked me to cover game a little bit. I think that there's a lot of people who want to make a lot of money off dating programs, but here's the God's honest truth, I believe, about this. Is all relationship advice when it comes to this kind of stuff like game and all these different things comes down to two things. It comes down to self-respect and self-directedness. Everything else falls in line with that, right? That's basically what all the dating advice tries to tell you how to do, like the pickup artist stuff, like how do you handle a shit test? A shit test is when you're trying to pick up a girl and she throws something back at you to try and get you off your game, and the responses they try to get you to give are basically responses that indicate high status, which would mean self-respect, basically. Self-directedness is about frame, right? Like, if you have self-respect, you're not going to apologize for the fact that you're not going to put up with things that you shouldn't put up with in a relationship. And if you're self-directed, you're willing to stand by those principles. So with these two things in line, you're not going to need something from somebody else because you're good with yourself from within, and you can clear all the crap out of the way. So I would focus on developing self-respect and self-directedness rather than trying to learn the best opening pickup line at the bar, all right? That kind of stuff is so surface level, and if you just show through who you are that you have self-respect and self-directedness, I think the women will be attracted to you a lot more than if you try and fake it. And the problem with faking it with all these little bar tricks and stuff is eventually that all comes crumbling down and you get exposed to be a fraud. So I'd say, again, focus on self-respect and self-directedness, and the game will come to you naturally from that, from doing that. But guys, that's all I got for this video. If you liked it, give me a thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe, hit the bell icon so you don't miss tomorrow's video, and I'll talk soon.